Today, I'm super excited. I get to bring to you my mentor and my business partner. I've had the blessing of working with this gentleman literally for almost 20 years now. And I've learned so much from him, from work ethic to cause to you name it. He originally had 10 years in retail, went on to have a sales force in the medical device arena, then went on to go to the home-based business. And he's been there and made his home there for over 25 years. And so I'm just thrilled and excited to bring to you a gentleman who walks the walk, talks the talk, earning over $500,000 a year in this venture. Please help me welcome Mr. Craig HEPNER. Hi, sir. How you doing?
Top of the morning to you, Kai. What a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for that kind introduction. The feeling is extremely mutual.
And I feel like this is going to be an easy interview because I know you so well. But, for those that haven't had a chance to really meet you, I'd love for them to hear about, you did the traditional, route. You went and did retail and managed a chain, 10 stores or 10 years with retail stores. What made you kind of have that aha moment where you're like, I need to go do something bigger, greater, better, be my own boss? Because I always that's why I start all my interviews.
Well, initially, Kai, I was just an employee of one of the stores while I was going to college. And I continued to get put on probation at a local junior college because I was so into surfing at the time. So, and then I started having a family. And all of a sudden I was managing one store, then I went to 3 stores, and then to 5 stores. And then eventually I became the general manager of the entire chain. And even though my workload went up and my hours went up, my income didn't go up at the same degree. And I realized that just managing someone else's business, I was working for their goals and dreams, and oftentimes at the expense of my own. And I knew that I eventually needed to own my own business and venture out.
And you went sort of a traditional route. Tell them what your first venture was, where you had a sales force. And I don't think people know that. Like, they just think there was, your background's very similar. I had the career thing, then I went and was self-employed traditional, then I went to home-based business. So what was your in-between there?
So after about 10 years of managing a chain of retail stores, we'd bought a house that went up 2.5 times in value in 5 years, and took my 3 sons on a 6-month road trip around the United States, Baja, Mexico, all the states except for 5 islands in the Caribbean, 5 provinces in Canada. And that's when I became aware that I need to get involved in residual income, because I love to travel. I love to have time freedom. I want to be present with my children, be in the moment. And I couldn't do that in retail. I mean, I was working 6-7 days a week during the holidays. We were working, 14, 15-hour days for 30 straight days. And I could just tell that wasn't the lifestyle I wanted. So I was introduced to patient and equipment financing, and I actually knocked on doors, if you can imagine, looking for business. And the retail taught me some sales and some marketing and management experience, but knocking on doors took on a whole new level. And my business started to take off, and I had more referrals than I knew what to do with. And so I started to hire a sales force. And this was the first time I'd ever done anything like this. And so I put together an attaché of some initial materials, trained them, and then took them out in the field and did field training with them. And so that was my first experience of earning overrides on a sales force. And then also when the dentists, the doctors, the hospitals use my financing, there was residual income involved as well. And that was the first time I experienced leveraged and residual income. And I liked it. And I realized from that point forward, I would never, ever be involved with anything that didn't have residual income. Because let's be candid, Kai, we all want to stop working someday. We just don't want the income to stop.
And I love that. You are a great father. But it's funny that you say that, because that's why I did health insurance when I made that transition from corporate to self-employed. But I just didn't like having to figure everything out. Like, you put together the attaché case. Like, I liked the fact that I could join kind of a franchise business model where they did all that kind of heavy lifting, because it just wasn't fun for me at all. So that's really interesting. What about, like, I know after that you started in the home-based business profession, and it wasn't just like straight to the top. You had companies that you never got paid in, ones that failed, so tell us about, I think you said you had 5 failed home business ventures. What in the world, I mean, obviously you learned a lot from your failures, I mean, lots, but what in the world kept you going? I mean, it would have been so easy to go back to managing a retail or going back to the traditional self-employment. What was it about that experience that kept you keep going, and what did you learn?
Those are some great questions, Kai. First of all, I knew you only had to be at the right place just once in life to create that significant lifestyle change. And so those first 5 startup companies, I met a lot of great contacts. I was getting a lot of great training, including some personal development. And I was hungry. I mean, by the time I, gone through 5 startup companies, and by the way, we should mention this for those that are looking at startup companies, statistically, 95% fail in the first 3 years, 95% fail in the first 5 years, and 100% of them failed on me in the first year or 2. So after 5 startup companies, if you can imagine, I didn't have a car. Went like almost 7 years without a car. Was sharing, 1-bedroom apartment with several people. Things were brutal, and I was a single dad. And someone told me years and years ago that you'll work hard for money, but that you'll do anything for your children and families. And so, one, knowing that you only need to be at the right place just once in life to make that significant change. And 2, my children, were coming up on driving ages, and I wanted them to have safe, reliable, dependable cars. And the university was behind that. And I didn't want them graduating into a lot of debt. And so that motivated me in a big, big way. I was definitely willing to do things for my children and family that I wasn't willing to do for myself. So I think everyone needs to have a big why, so you continue to go after your goals and you stay focused on those goals.
Yeah, I think unless you're hungry, you may not put the work in that you need to put in. And so I think people see you on the other side of money, you making over $500,000 a year, you've got this beautiful home. But I mean, there was some time that you put in. And so I mean, sometimes I think entrepreneurs, they don't want to see the work side of stuff. They just want to see the fun side. But I mean, you will work your butt off. And so talk to them about your work ethic, because I think, you've arrived, if you will. It's a different reality. What was it like in those first companies, and how hard did you work? And tell people about the real deal.
Well, I worked hard in retail, but when you work for yourself, you're willing to work even harder, particularly when you're working towards your goals, dreams, and aspirations. And I had a lot. And so, Kai, I worked my ass off, to be just totally candid, in those first 5 startups. I mean, I treated them like they were my own, that this was it. I was all in. I mean, I was so committed to these companies that even when the FTC closed them down, because of my past experience in the peace and justice movement and social justice causes, I actually organized a demonstration against the FTC to reopen our company. I mean, I was brutally committed to the very end. I was always the last person to leave each one of those companies. And so I kept that level of commitment, and people saw my work ethic and my integrity. And so when we got to finally this opportunity, for the first time, I saw a rock solid company, not a startup. They've been around for 27 years, number 1 on the American Stock Exchange 2 years in a row, went to the big board, became like the 33rd fastest growing stock almost within the first year. And I just absolutely went for it. But I worked just as hard as I did in those first 5 companies, but this one didn't close down. And I can sincerely say, Kai, what I did in the first 90 days, and most importantly, what I did in the first 3 years, and I did some sacrificing. I really did. There was no TV in my household. I missed family functions, but I knew that successful people do what unsuccessful people are willing to do. And if you do today what others won't, you're going to have tomorrow what others don't. And so I'm grateful that I sacrificed those first 3 years. I didn't sleep. I remember saying back then, sleep's for the feeble, the weak. I'll get sleep later. So we just went for it. And those 3 years have really set up these last 20 years of just an unbelievable lifestyle.
Wow. And, freedom isn't free. You're going to work your face off. And now being, literally, like we said, on the other side of money, what did those 90 days, 3 years look like? So for real, you said you didn't sleep. Was it like, I know you worked with your father. So what did the war room look like?
Well, Let me clarify something. I've actually been in the home-based business now for about 30 years.
Wow.
And that entire time I've worked with both my mother and my father. And that has been a blessing just in and of itself.
Yeah, you can't bring your parents to your retail store with you.
Correct. Actually, they would work some of the holidays, but
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, and I have three of my sisters working in the retail stores as well. Maybe a couple friends, because during the holidays, you just need a much larger, staff. So yeah, I love to sleep until I'm done today. And I've been able to do that now for almost 20 years. But those first 3 years, there was very, very little sleep going on. And I knew that this was a unique moment in time and I could get my sleep later. But yeah, it's about setting goals and having affirmations every morning and every night and keeping those goals at the forefront of your mind. And a couple of things that I used to keep as a Post-it note when we did Post-it notes, is I must do the most productive thing possible at every given moment. Wow, that'll keep you really focused. And what can I do today that will get me closer to my goals? And those were two affirmations I read daily for the first 3 years. I just had to stay focused on money-making activities and not allow myself to get distracted. I heard someone once say, it's easy to get in the zone. It's easy to get knocked out. You've got to protect that attitude.
Yeah, you had one too, which is, if my team did what I did today, what would my check look like? You had a couple of those, and I had those on there all the time too. So affirmations, goals, those are a huge part of your success. I also know that you've had, and folks, there are comments, so you can comment on here. There you go. KK, love you, woman. She loves her affirmations as well. She's a mindful coach and sells insurance. She's great. And I think these are universal principles all over the place. So talk to us really quickly, though, about some of the influences that you had in your life. So some people are very motivated by like movies like The Secret or books that they read. I know you read early on Think and Grow Rich and some other things that influenced you. And so talk about those early influences and now who are your influences? Because I know Martin Luther King Jr. is a big influence of yours. So talk to us about your inspiration and influence early on and now today.
Yeah, because most of my adult life has been committed to peace and justice, human rights. One of the largest chapters of Amnesty International met at my home for almost a decade. It was one of the most active of all chapters. I went on a human rights trip to both El Salvador and Nicaragua at the height of the conflict and war there. And so I became very, very much influenced by not only people like Dr. Martin Luther King, but one of his influences was Gandhi. And then Malcolm X. And so I would read biographies of people that were committed to peace and justice and social justice. And those things really, really influenced me. In fact, you've heard me say many times, I'm much more cause-driven than I am commission-driven. And the only reason I have the level of excitement and commitment after 23 years to this company is the cause and the mission. And that really motivates me. And so I could go down a list of the biographies I've read and the people that have influenced me, but the people that are committed to peace and justice are the ones that really rock my soul and really motivate me to continue to move forward.
I love it. And I think early in my entrepreneurial venture, when I did go into the health insurance arena, I went for the commission. I was like, this is going to be great. But I hated it. I was bored and it wasn't making my heart sing and I didn't get excited about it. And it's very, very difficult to work your face off if you don't like it. That is just never going to work for it, right?
You've got to be passionate about what you're doing. You've got to be excited. You got to be enthusiastic. The last four letters of enthusiasm are I am sold myself. And until you're sold, committed, and passionate, you're probably not going to receive or achieve the level of success that you're looking forward to.
Agreed. And, you've had other ventures outside of our company, some dabbling things. How important is it for you to have, multiple streams of income? Because there's a kind of a misnomer. Because I think sometimes if you have multiple streams, you have difficulty concentrating on them. If you've got, because for a while I had my this business and I had my health insurance business and I sucked at both of them because I was trying to ride two horses. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know now you've got multiple streams, but back then, how was that for you?
Yeah, it's been said you can't chase two jackrabbits and catch either. You've got to be really, really focused. And I've seen a lot of people that try and do 3, 4, 5 things, and they're just fragmented, and they're not seriously like, I mean, if you're going to have massive success, you've got to be seriously focused on what you're doing. And it's hard to do that with multiple projects. So the things that I've gotten involved with outside of my home-based business don't demand a whole lot of my time or energy. There's passive income attached to that. And I felt very fortunate. I was able to get my parents and some of my siblings involved in that investment as well. And it's paid off tremendously well as well. But I would never at this stage take my focus off my primary income because I still feel like timing wise, the market share is still ahead of us. I know, Kai, that you and I have had a goal from day one to earn 6 figures a month. And that is a goal that both of us still have to this day. That's 1.2 million a year. And so that's why I kind of view as my minimum wage, if you will.
Yeah, no, and I think, if you have a job, you should keep a job and do whether it's real estate or insurance, whatever, on the side till your part-time income equals your full-time income, and treat your, side hustle like it's a job so that you can pay yourself like that. But I think there's a lot of people that are, oh, I'm going to do like 3 or 4 independent ventures, and I've never seen them be successful at all of them.
Very rarely, if ever, do they get to a 6-figure annual income. They never get to a 6-figure monthly income. So yeah, people need to be aware of, getting too fragmented, allowing distractions. And you said something very profound, Kai, that I'd like to elaborate on. And that is, I think one of the real landmines is people going full time into their side project prematurely. I've seen people that were making $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month part-time, but they were accustomed to making $10,000, $15,000 a month. And they gave up their full-time job to pursue something that they were excited about, and they would have eventually surpassed their original income in their job, but they just went into it prematurely, put so much stress and pressure and anxiety into their life that they weren't nearly as effective full-time as they used to be part-time. So I agree with you. If you're going to go ahead and eventually go full-time, make sure that your part-time income with your side project has exceeded your full-time income for 3 or 4 months before you make that transition full-time.
Yeah, I was guilty of that. I mean, even though I didn't like insurance, I was doing okay. And I was like, well, if I do this, but I didn't know how to work from home. It was a totally different animal because a lot of people are used to going into an office. And you and I, prior to going live here today, we're talking a little bit about going to an office versus working from home. I'd love for you to share those couple of insights that you shared, because I mean, it's one thing to own a business where it's brick and mortar and you got to go in, which is what I had, versus, being at home. What are some pros and cons when you're evaluating looking at an entrepreneurial venture?
Well, you've got to have a real level of discipline if you're going to be working from home, because there's just so many potential distractions. And so I'm a person that, not only writes down their goals, but reviews those goals often. And usually the night before I go to sleep, I'll write down what I want to get accomplished the following day. I want to wake up wondering, what should I be doing now? I want to have a clear vision of what my day is going to look like the day before I go to sleep, So when I wake up, I'm already in production mode. I'm not going to let distractions get in the way. I'm going to set aside time, Kai. As you know, I love to get to the gym, and it just helps me both physically and mentally, and it does things for my soul that I need. And so I'll set aside time to recharge my batteries, if you will, to make sure I'm, clear-headed and focused on what do I want to accomplish. But yeah, you've got to set goals and you've got to stay disciplined. And if you have big whys, like I did for my children and my family, it's easier to stay focused.
And I feel like I can see that in you. And I didn't know you in those first few years, those first 5 years. I met you 20 years ago and started working together. And so I really wish I could have been a fly on the wall back then and seen what it looked like today. Life looks a little different now for you. And I know it's kind of hard because when people come and they see somebody who's won in whatever venture they went to, I've got a guy who owned a bunch of auto car sales, big lots and whatnot. And he was on the other side. He's like, you see me now. I mean, I have 10 lots and I don't really work anymore. But I mean, he's like, you should have seen me. I mean, I've sold every damn car that came through here, So I think people see the finished product, like was where you are today with the beautiful home and the travel and all that stuff. And they don't see it back then. But I mean, it's the fine balance between, making sure people know that there is a promise at the end of the hard work, and then, making sure they still are working, because you still work today, right?
I'm working harder now than I've worked in a long, long, long time. But, people do need to see lifestyle. So I felt like I needed to take one for the company, one for the team. And,
poor baby.
You heard me say that, I took my sons on a 6-month road trip, and people used to say, wow, that's once in a lifetime opportunity. And just between you and I, Kai, you just kind of pissed me off. Like, what do you mean once in a lifetime? I turned 30 years old on the 6-month road trip. I can't surpass that. And so, after about a decade of, really working hard, I was able to take 2 years off and buy a one-way ticket to Europe, a one-way ticket to Latin America. People are like, what do you mean a one-way ticket? I go, I don't know when I'm coming back. And that's what happens when you have time and financial freedom. A lot of people have a lot of time, but no money. Other people have a lot of money, but not a whole lot of time. And I love the fact that you can have both. And so to take those 2 years off and travel the world, I enjoyed every moment of every hour of every day. I couldn't imagine it being any better than it was. It was absolutely magical. And I look forward to doing it again somewhere in the near future.
And I have no doubt you will. And I love that. It is inspiring to see that, there is a promise after working hard. But it was also kind of interesting too, because I feel like, you are in waves, and in a business like ours, you can work in waves. And I'm not sure that you can do that in every business, but I think every business has seasons, right? So if you own an ice cream store, you're going to be working really hard in the summer. How do those waves work, and what kind of advice can you give to people for these spurts of working? Because I think that's the ticket.
Yeah, I mean, even in retail, there's waves. I mean, if you don't have a good holiday season, it could cost you the year. Most of the profits come in that, that month of December. And so in a home-based business, most people can run hard for 90 days. And we just came out of a convention. And so I'm running hard for the next 90 days till the end of the year. And then we've got a 50th anniversary convention coming up next year. I'm going to run hard from January 1 right into that convention. So right now I'm in the middle of 2 90-day runs. And so I know how important those are. My first 90-day run 23 years ago really kind of set me up in many ways for these last 23 years. Wow. I continued 90-day runs for almost 3 years. And seriously, if someone could get very focused, incredibly committed, and really go for it, those 3 years could set someone up for life as well.
And I've seen it. It's done it for you. And we talked about, and I appreciate you sharing that, because, you can work hard to play later, or you can just, work hard all the time. But my question to you too is like, go ahead.
There's either going to be pain on the front end for a lifetime of gain, or those that are playing on the front end, unfortunately, have a lifetime of pain on the back end.
It's true. And we've seen it.
Real.
Right?
I just want to keep it real. I mean, I'd rather get it out of the way on the front end for a lifetime of financial and time freedom.
It's so true. And it's interesting too, because, we talked about how everything that we've done in our lives, all of our failures, all of our successes, everything is a culmination of where we are today. And that's true for everyone. They say, what you did for the last 5 years or 10 years or whatever has put you exactly where you are today. And people don't like that if they don't like the results that they're in right now. Or they're going to look at it and say, yes, you're right. I made this, right? As opposed to the life of blame when they end up 5-10 years and they don't like it. So one, speak to that. But number two is, so you're embracing all those failures, all those startup companies. But is there one thing that if you could go back in a time machine and tell yourself, hey, self, beware of this, don't do this. Is there any one thing that you maybe would have done different if you could go back and do it again?
One, I would have avoided the first 5 startups. Wow. I almost go into like a little bit of a seizure when I hear the word startup. I understand the lure of ground floor opportunity, but there's a difference between a ground floor opportunity and a startup. That's one. But, Kai, whether it was retail or even before what I was doing, all the little things I did in high school, as you do as a kid, I felt like all of those things led me to this unique moment in time. What I'm referring to 23 years ago. And so, for those that really have a mindset and they're committed and they're focused and they're not going to give up, and successful people do what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do, you almost feel like you're grabbing a hold of destiny. Everything you've done in your previous life has led you to this moment in time. And now it's your time, it's your season. And now it's time to really reset those goals, and really go after it. And don't let distractions, don't let anything get in the way. I mean, just absolutely remain focused. And so, I really feel like everything I've done, both in terms of jobs, entrepreneurialism, being in the peace and justice movement, all of that has led me to this opportunity today. And I think most people feel that way, regardless of what kind of business it is, whether it's brick and mortar, home-based business, entrepreneurialism. They feel like, it's destiny. It's meant for them, and they're not going to let anything get in the way. Draw their line in the sand, throw their hat over the wall. It's my time.
I couldn't agree more. And when you decide that it aligns with everything that you want, don't do anything else. Just do it until, because, I didn't have the fast results. Like, you made 6 figures in your first year with this, venture. I didn't. I mean, I made $500 a month. So, but I knew what I was doing wasn't stupid. I knew what I was doing was where I wanted to be. I knew what I was doing. So I would just do it until. I think people quit too soon if they're not getting the results that they want.
Kai, my first company in the home-based business industry, my first month was $395. And I put in almost 40 hours on top of my job. And then I really went for it the second month, and my income was $95 for the month. So I know what it's like to be in that situation. My success today has everything to do with my failures in my past. Those first 5 startup companies for 7 years, the personal development, what I learned, the contacts I developed. And, I had people that I actually had terminated from previous companies that wanted to be part of my sales force in the future, only because they knew my integrity and work ethic.
Wow. Well, it's hard to believe that we've already come to the half hour here. I know it goes fast, doesn't it?
Wow.
Is there anything, like, if you could just say one thing to entrepreneurs budding or whatever, is there one piece of advice that you would like to leave them with that has been instrumental in you having, just literally mega success? You're one of the top 12 people in our entire company in lifetime income. So, you certainly have separated yourself from the masses. You certainly have so many nuggets. Like, if you listen to this interview and you hear about the affirmations and the goals and the dreams and the whys and all that stuff, it's all right here. The formula for success in any business is right here. Is there any last parting comment that you'd like to share that just, you feel like would really help somebody go to the top of whatever it is that they want to do?
I mentioned it earlier, but something that really kept me going through difficult times is that successful people do what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. Someone also said the ladder of success is filled with splinters, but you only fill them on the way down. And something that really got to me, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, all of us are where we're at today based on decisions and choices we've made in the last 3 to 5 years. The beautiful thing about that is the past doesn't have to equal the future. Where we've been in life has nothing to do with where we're going in life. And being at the right place at the right time can expedite that process. So be committed and passionate about whatever you do, but also recognize timing plays a huge, huge, huge factor in one's success as well. And so I will leave you with this. This is an affirmation that I didn't like initially, because when you're $200,000 in debt and you don't have a car, you don't have a driver's license, you don't have a place of your own, they said the whole world is self-made, but only the successful are willing to admit it.
Yeah.
See, I had a hard time admitting I was a self-made failure. No one wants to go around admitting that, but it was true. I was exactly where I was based on choices and decisions I made in my past. I am where I am today based on choices and decisions I made 23 years ago. And I'm so grateful I made those decisions. I'm so grateful I ventured out on entrepreneurialism. Owning your own business is where it's at. And that's how you're able to design a lifestyle that you and your family want for your future.
What a great way. That's kind of a drop the mic there. I love it. Well, thank you so much. I love you. I love working with you. We've had such a fun 20 years. And as they say, the best is yet to come. And just appreciate you taking the time to share with everybody, either right now live or who will watch this on replay on both YouTube and our Facebook. So with that, I just want to thank you, sir, for being here again. I appreciate your time.
Kai, I would be remiss if I didn't publicly express my tremendous appreciation, love, and respect for you. I'm grateful to have you as a business partner, and I couldn't be happier. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that. Well, just want to thank everybody for joining us who joined us live today or will be watching this on the replay. My name is Kai Deering, and this is On the Fly with Kai. We come to you every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and all time zones in between with tips, tricks, and hacks for entrepreneurs, those who are budding and those who want to do that. And thank you so much, KK. I'll put that one up there. Appreciate you staying and watching the show with all of us. Take care, take charge. We'll see you over the top. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.